Alright guys, today we're going to talk about fluvial geomorphology, which is really just talking about how running water on the surface of the earth changes the land. So erosion, what is erosion? Erosion is the process of moving material. Okay, so water, it erodes by hydrologic action, abrasion, and solution. So water, as it goes over these rocks, little pieces are going to break off, and the water is going to carry them along. And also, the water may dissolve some of the material depending on what the material is made out of. So that's what erosion is actually talking about. We're moving the material. So if you have faster moving water, that means you're going to have more erosion. So when you're looking at a stream or a river, the maximum velocity is near the center and the top of a channel. And that is because there's less friction, right? You got friction along the bottom, friction along the side, and that slows that water down. So that fastest point is going to be up and in the middle. So if you have a straight stream, the fastest moving water is going to be in that top middle portion. Okay, so if you're cruising along in your boat and you want to go real quick, you're going to get to the middle part of that stream. Now if there's a curve to the stream, what's going to happen is that fastest water is going to be on the outside edge. Okay, on the top of the outside edge. The reason for that is the water goes around a curve, the momentum of the water carries it, and the water wants to keep going straight, so that faster water is going to move to this outer edge out here. Okay, so there's a couple different types of streams. Braided streams are large sediment supply, so they got lots of dirt and sand in them. These tend to happen around deserts, glacial areas, so places where there's lots of loose sediment. Channels tend to get clogged, and then the water keeps splitting and rejoining. So here's a picture of a braided stream, so you can see why it's called a braided stream. So this is obviously a place where glaciers are. There's lots of sediment, and so the water just kind of gets clogged up by all this sediment. And then water works its way through the sediment, causing these braids. The other type is a meandering stream. Meandering streams are the most common. It's going to be a single channel. They have broad looping curves and meanders. So here's a picture showing that. And you guys have probably seen these. If you've flown in an airplane and looked out the window at all, you see these all the time. But these are called meanders because the water's meandering. So here's an actual photo of that happening. Okay. Terminology that goes along with these. So you can see these. This happens a lot on farms. So these may be a couple of farmers looking at their land. But what happens is because that water is moving so fast along the outside, that's where it erodes a lot. So the fast water is on the outside, and it starts to dig in and cut into the side of this bank over here, and we call that a cut bank. Okay, so that outside edge of the curve where it's getting eroded by that fast-moving water is called the cut bank. On the inside edge, the water's moving slow. Okay, so the water's more slow in here, so that's where stuff's going to get deposited in the drop. So if there's sand or pebbles or rocks, the water's moving slowly, so that stuff's going to fall down because there's lower energy. And that starts to build up over time and create what we call a point bar. Okay, so a cut bank is on the outside curve, point bar is on the inside. Here's a picture of a cut bank. Cut banks are a real hazard, or we have to keep a close eye on them because you can see the roads right here. That eventually this road, some work's going to have to be done here to prevent serious damage to the road. Here's a picture of the point bar. Okay, so here's that picture again we're looking at now. If we look at this location right here, you can see that here's the cut bank on the outside edge, and you can see maybe here's part of a cut bank where it's starting to curve. And you can see that these rivers, eventually, it's going to work its way and connect at that point. Okay. Now, when that happens, it creates what we call an Oxbow lake. So here's that meander, and when the meander keeps eroding on both sides, and eventually it connects, and the river will run straight through. Okay, so the new channel runs right through, and then it kind of cut off this section over here. That is what we call an Oxbow lake. Okay, because that migration of the meander keeps happening, and then it eventually cuts off that section of the river. So then that river then becomes a C-shaped or a U-shaped or a horseshoe-shaped lake, and they call it an Oxbow lake. Okay, so the Army Corps of Engineers, because of this, in some instances, they're going to artificially maintain these meanders to not let this happen, because it causes lots of problems for people's lands. Okay, so here's an actual picture. You can see there's the Oxbow Lake right there. So that river used to curve along there, and then it eventually cut through. Here is a little animation to show you that kind of goes through that process. So it's fast water on the outside of the curve, slow on the inside, and where that cut bank is happening, it starts to erode away. And that point bar forms on the inside. Now if your house is there, that's obviously bad. And that's why the Army Corps of Engineers works to maintain some of those meanders so that doesn't happen to people's homes. And if time goes on, you end up with the formation of an Oxbow lake. Okay. Alright, let's see if we can get you going on here. Alright, the next one, real quick here, is deposition. So when that water slows down, it loses velocity, and those big heavy particles are going to be deposited. Okay, they're going to just fall down because the water's not moving fast enough to carry them. And that creates a couple things. One of them is an alluvial fan. An alluvial fan is formed when gradient suddenly flattens. So if the gradient really starts to get flat, so we've got a mountainous region, you can imagine the water's coming pretty fast here, and then all of a sudden it gets to this flat region, the water slows down. And when it slows down, all of that sediment gets dumped because the water's no longer moving fast enough to carry it. Okay, here's an actual picture of one. I think this is from Death Valley. So the water's coming out quickly out of the mountains, carrying all that sediment, and then when it slows down here, all that sediment falls out. So we would anticipate having, bigger rocks up here, and then sand or smaller sized gravel down at the outside. The other version of that is if that were to happen in the water. Okay, if that dumps into a big water body, we get the formation of a delta. And here's a picture of the Mississippi Delta down by Louisiana. Okay, if you have any other questions, be sure you shoot me an email or stop me in class.